Today, we are going over the article from GiveMeSports.com about 3 players the Detroit Lions should trade for and 2 players that the Detroit Lions should trade away for this up-and-coming NFL season. So we're going to go through those 3 players, give you my thoughts, as well as players whom they want the Detroit Lions to trade away, and give you my thoughts right there. Let's get this thing started. Again, reacting to these names, and these are names that's been connected to the Detroit Lions, feel like since the NFL trade deadline last year, and as it continues to go on here. So I'm going to give you my legit shots. Is this something that the Lions would do, or is this completely far-fetched, not going to happen, and just simply just out of the realm of possibility? We're going to go ahead and get into that. But again, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 66,100 subscribers, about 20 away. Smash that sub button. Now, again, you can go to the article from GiveMeSports.com to check it out if you don't want to just watch the video. And the first player that the Detroit Lions that they had for the Lions to trade for was Jaycee Horn, the tall 6'1" cornerback from the Carolina Panthers. Now, what he did last year is simple. Here, Horn, he had 29 solo tackles and 5 pass defense. Didn't really have the greatest of seasons, but he is a player who is of starting experience. He does have an idea of how to operate for the Lions defense. But again, I think for the Lions' sake and how we want to operate, the odds of the Lions trading for Horn seems extremely unlikely, because I think that the Lions simply want to go into the NFL draft and potentially get a cornerback right there. Now, again, if the Lions were to make a trade for a player or a cornerback, I think it would be after the NFL draft if they did not do well scoring a corner whom they like. As we all know, the Lions, they really want to get better at the corner position. We completely upended it this offseason. So they want to get better in the secondary. This is well known. Everybody knows what they want to do. But again, they already picked up a lot of players in free agency via trade, like Emmanuel Mosley, trading for Davis, Mr. Carlton Davis himself, Amik Robertson. So they got veterans. They would like to get this position filled, and that could be the draft. But if they score out of the draft, maybe this is something they can contemplate. I think it's extremely unlikely. That's my personal opinion. Question for you. Should the Detroit Lions trade for Jaycee Horn? Type HY for hell yes, HN for hell no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I don't like stressing over buying tickets, and unfortunately, I have done that multiple times because I like to go to concerts. I like to do stuff. But when I got Game Time, that all end. Game Time is where it's at, with the best deals that you potentially could get. And that's Game Time right there. Is you're going to get great deals on the lowest prices, and you can stop stressing and start getting hyped from the fun you're going to have. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, or whatever. Their lowest price is guaranteed. That's the Game Time guaranteed, which means you're always going to get the best prices. If you find tickets in the same area in the section row less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You look in the middle screenshot, by the way, it's a fantastic feature of the app. It shows you where your seat is. You move your phone left to right, and you can see the area like a 3D live photo. If you're watching the Michigan Panthers, the kicker kicked that 64-yard field goal. That just happened at Ford Field. Games, everything's still going on there. And you can get those tickets really cheap for Game Time. You get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, baseball, basketball, concerts, and more. And you can see the area like a 3D live photo. That is freaking awesome. To do this, all you got to do is download Game Time, put in Chat Sports, get $20 off your very first purchase. Some of these tickets are only $20. Free tickets. Again, you go to the redeem code section, plug in Chat Sports, get $20 off your very first purchase. Terms do apply. Create an account. You have to have an email, all that lovely stuff to get this thing going. The information is going to be in the description and comment section of this video. If you're buying Lions tickets this year, or any tickets, Michigan Panthers, or if you're in the West Michigan area, Grand Rapids Griffins, make sure you're using Game Time. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's continue on with another player that they mentioned the Detroit Lions could trade for. Now, this name has been in the rumor mill for the Lions for the past couple of weeks, that's Greg Newsome, because it looks like he could be illegitimately on, a trade option for their team. Like he could be on the trade market for legit. He's a good corner. We did last year 34 solo tackles, 14 pass defense, 2 interceptions. I would love to have Greg Newsome on this football team. I am not going to lie. He would definitely make this secondary much better, much improved, and give the Lions a much-needed boost after the loss of Cam Sutton, who, by any search of the match, he just didn't play well last year, and then we released him. Greg Newsome's a good player, and this would be an ideal trade target if we don't get anyone in the NFL draft, if we don't get the player whom the Lions covet to be in the secondary, because we got to win right now. That's the name of the game. It's not win 3 years from now, 2 years from now. We got to win right now. Greg Newsome, I don't think it's going to cost a ton to trade for him via draft capital, and you immediately be an upgrade. But I do believe the philosophy, and I think we all should understand this, it's always about the draft first. That's how our team operates. That is exactly how Brad Holmes operates. We love to do the NFL draft. But if the Lions strike out, I think this is the guy whom I would probably trade for if they're looking for that. So should the Detroit Lions trade for Greg Newsome? Why for yes and for no? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The last player that they had the Detroit Lions trading for, we still got more players to trade away on the list, but the last player that they got the Lions trading for is Tee Higgins. He's a 6'4" wide receiver for the Bengals. I've heard this name around the NFL a billion times. A lot. Because what they're dealing with over there in Cincinnati, 42 receptions, 656 yards, 5 touchdowns, 15.6 average. The rumor of Tee Higgins and a trade with the Lions has been happening all off season, but especially now with Josh Reynolds gone. The rumor mill decides to fill up for the Detroit Lions. Why? Because a lot of analysts believe that the Lions are right now in an option getting close to the Super Bowl. So if you were to make a trade for a Tee Higgins, you could take him over the top. That's the thought process. It's not going to happen. I'm going to just go ahead and kind of cut this one down. It's not happening. First off, he costs a lot of money, and that's why we're hearing rumors of him getting traded away from the Cincinnati Bengals. He costs money. We didn't even bring in Josh Reynolds for $4.5 million a year that the Denver Broncos did. Okay? It's going to cost a lot of draft capital to get Tee Higgins. So big draft capital, big money. Does that sound like Brad Holmes to you? No, it does not sound like Brad Holmes at all. Just at all. It's not his style. And it doesn't make any sense from a Brad Holmes standpoint. Now, look, in theory, if you were to have Tee Higgins, yeah, he's going to make the wide receiver room a million times better. So would Tyreek Hill. So is all these players you can possibly think of. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's a thing called cap space and players on your roster whom you already got to pay, and it just doesn't make any sense. And we got St. Brown. We got to pay him a big deal here very soon. That's going to cost the Lions money. So I'd never do 0% on anything, but I'm doing a 0.001% chance this happening, i.e. it's not happening. But that's just me. What about you? Should the Lions trade for Tee Higgins? T for trade or P for pass? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I haven't. Now he has players the Detroit Lions could trade away. And the first one here is John Kaminsky, and he did have a down year last year. Kaminsky, he didn't play as well as we wanted him to. We thought he would be more of a presence upon that defensive line. And guess what? His contract got reduced this offseason because of it. I thought he would go ahead and have to reduce his contract, or the Lions potentially could have released him. I've been saying that before the contract was even talked about, as soon as the offseason hit. So since he took a pay cut, I think he's going to stay with the Detroit Lions, just like we had with Charles Harris and Romeo Okwara last year. I don't believe that the Detroit Lions are going to get rid of John Kaminsky because he did that. Now, look, if he plays poor in training camp, if he doesn't do well and the Lions get some more pass rushers in the draft or in free agency, after the draft, then maybe he could be cut, and maybe it's one of those deals where it's like, look, we got good here. Maybe we get a 7th-round pick out of him, right? Because if you're to trade, it's going to be chump change. I don't see it happening. I give this extremely unlikely. Question: name a player the Lions should draft. We've been talking about players whom the Lions are going to get in this year's draft, so let me know in the thoughts of players who the Detroit Lions should draft. Next player, last player is the Detroit Lions potentially trading away, James Mitchell. Now the Detroit Lions, the number 2 tight end. Why? Because Brock Wright just signed that contract with the 49ers, and I don't believe the Lions are going to match it. Now, if they do, okay, James Mitchell's number 3. But you get what I'm saying? He's still going to be in the Detroit Lions. Why do I think he will not be traded at all? And it makes 0 sense. First off, the Brock Wright deal. Secondly, the Detroit Lions really like James Mitchell. And they drafted him in the 5th round as a 3rd-round talent, but is due to injuries. And they want to see the development of James Mitchell. So if you don't have Brock Wright, you got James Mitchell and Shane Zylstra, Sam Laporta, that's not bad. Now, they can definitely get another tight end in the draft, maybe late in the draft or as an undrafted guy like they did with Brock Wright, because that's what he was. And maybe this guy comes in and does well, and then James Mitchell falls. I just don't see it happening. They really love development of their players. Derek Barnes took 3 years to develop into a really solid player. Ifutu Melifonwu. James Mitchell is going to be one of those players whom I think the Detroit Lions are grooming to have themselves a good tight end, with the development. So I don't see them being traded. Why would you do that if you believe in his development? So I don't see this happening with James Mitchell. I think he's going to end up being our number 2. And that's the important part of this football team, is to continue to draft players and develop them. Because if you consistently just get rid of these players after development, guess what, folks? Then the process of draft and development doesn't make a lot of sense, if you ask me. It doesn't. That's just what we do. Go ahead and share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Dropping content. We'll be live for the draft, okay? April 25, Herman Moore. We're going to be at the Soaring Eagle Casino for round 1. I'm going to try to get to Detroit area for rounds 2 and 3. Go ahead and sub if you want to get your Lions draft. With that said, folks, adios.